Hey, this is Terry Bates here at the Cornell Lake Erie Research and Extension Lab. It's May 2024 and we're getting started with our new planting project for 2025. So we're more than a year off from when the vines are going to go in the ground. But the plot behind me, there's a 5-acre plot behind us, and we are going to start prepping the land to get ready for our planting for next year. And I wanted to walk you through the process step by step. And today we're starting off with doing some soil sled sampling. So we're scanning this soil with a dual EM soil sled, which measures electrical conductivity and magnetic susceptibility in the soil. And what we're really looking for is what is the true soil pattern in this field behind me. And then we will do some soil sampling and maybe even a soil pit based on what the soil pattern tells us that's going on in the field behind me. So let's get started.
Okay, here's a block map of the Cornell Lake Erie Research and Extension Lab. And the block that we are concerned with here is one I have colored in yellow, and that is our 5.39 acre block that we have cleared. Want to do a soil assessment on and cover crop and then prepare for planting for next season. So there's 3 maps I want to show you just to get us started on how to, what resources can I pull from to get a map of that soil and then be able to go out and do field validation based on those maps. So the first one would be the polygon map from the NRCS Web Soil Survey. The second one is a soil moisture sensor that I collected field data and logged that data with a MyEV data collector to map the soil moisture in the field. And then the third one is our dual EM soil sled that gives us electrical conductivity and magnetic susceptibility at 2 different depths, so we can get a little bit better idea and more detailed idea of what the soils are doing in that vineyard. Okay, so the first one, you don't even need MyEV. You can go to the NRCS Web Soil Survey, which is a tool that many extension people use and anybody can use to map out the soils on their farm. You just hit the Start WSS green button and you zoom to your farm and block out your area of interest, and then explore the soils. It'll return to you what your soil types are and the polygon shape files that make up where those soils are. So thanks to Ellen Coyne from the Finger Lakes, she asked the question, how can she go about pulling those polygons into MyEV? And since she knows that MyEV will accept a zipped shape file, she figured out how to export that from the NRCS website and import it into MyEV, and I will post another how-to video on how to make that happen. So when you pull it into MyEV, it looks something like this. So I can see where the different soil types are on our vineyard, and then within my 5-acre block, I can see what different soil types are moving into that block. The second thing I did was I used a Spectrum Technologies Field Scout soil moisture probe, so a TDR probe, a time domain reflectometry, which is used to measure soil moisture. And I'll probably post another video on kind of the science behind TDR probes. But essentially, it's a sensor. This sensor, I think, currently runs you about $1,500, but it'll come with a GPS and data logger if you want to collect that data. I use it. I just physically attached my cell phone to the handle of the sensor, started a MyEV data collector, and every time I pushed that probe into the ground and got a percent soil moisture reading, I logged it into MyEV so that I could map it. So in this particular case, my 5-acre block, I think I probed the soil about 250 times. Each one of those numbers represents the soil moisture reading in that area, and then I can map it. So I got a nice soil moisture map of that farm showing, which does relate to the different soil types and the slopes associated with those soil types in the vineyard. The third thing I did was I took our dual EM soil sled and drove it through the vineyard and got a high density data set across the whole vineyard, which looks something like that. So again, I can map both magnetic susceptibility and electrical conductivity. And I think I'll post a third video on talking more about the science behind how a EM38 or this dual EM sensor works and what is it telling us. But then I can also within MyEV compare those different soils maps. So in this case, the NRCS polygon shapefile layered with electrical conductivity map for the farm. So more specifically on our 5-acre block, you can see here that the NRCS map generally gets us in the ballpark. And this is compared with the deep EC map from the soil sled. So again, if you don't have a soil sensor or you're not going to pay a service. So my recommendation would be if you wanted to have a detailed soils map done of your farm, you would hire somebody with an EM38 to come and map your field. It comes with a pretty hefty price tag for you to own one yourself, to really just map your soils either once or once every, say, 5 years, because that soil pattern is not going to change very much over the years unless you're doing some pretty intensive soil amendments over that time period. So if you want to just use the NRCS map to stratify some of your samples, it'll definitely get you in the ballpark. If you really want something more detailed on your vineyard, then collect some high density spatial data so you can identify very specific zones within that vineyard and then the transitions between those zones, which might impact how you would manage that vineyard. So again, in our case, we wanted to try to stratify samples so that we can do some field validation against these spatial maps that we have. In my case, I collected 4 composite samples of the soils across that vineyard. And just using a traditional, what we call a Dutch auger, take some soil cores from those stratified sample locations. So the way I did this was I took that EC map and in MyEV and went to the grid generator and identified where I wanted to locate my soil samples in the vineyard. Then I went out to the vineyard with my phone running MyEV so I could navigate to where those white points are and collect the soil. I would mix it up in a 5-gallon bucket and then dry it and then send it off to the lab for analysis. So when I was all done, our lab looked like this for a couple days where we were drying out the soil, then putting the soil into the sample bags and sending them off for analysis. So when I get that back, I will run another video on what the soil tests are telling us. I will also probably have some videos where we'll go out and dig some soil pits and get a really good idea what's going on with the soil in those different zones. So that's several different ways that you can get some soil maps pulled into MyEV and be able to go out and stratify samples and make some field observations so you get a better assessment of what is going on in your vineyard. So until next time, good luck and happy growing season.